Hello Flosstube and welcome back to another episode from Ros Clark Craft. I'm Ros Clark. Ros Clark Craft is my channel here on YouTube. It's also the name of my Etsy shop and you can find me as Ros Clark. Do you know, lots of people seem to have struggled saying that. And I have always been like, why can't people just say it? It's easy. And now apparently I can't say it either. Anyway, I'm also Ros Clark Craft over on Instagram. So, hello, welcome back. Nice to see you. It's been 2 weeks. It's been slightly more than 2 weeks. I cannot remember a thing these days. I'm just going to warn you now, in this video, there's definitely going to be some too much information. I apologise. If you're of a squeamish nature about women's things, sorry, not sorry. This time last year, well, so this is kind of personal and also quite sad. So 2-3 days ago on my Facebook, you know how they come up with sort of random memories of stuff and you're like, yeah, I didn't really need to be reminded of that. But this week I had one with a lovely memory from the riad that I stayed in this time last year when I went on a painting holiday in Morocco. And it was beautiful, and it was a picture of the plunge pool and all the tiled walls and so on in the entryway to where we stayed. And it was a beautiful memory, and it was beautiful to remember on this really, really hot weather that we've been having. I'm like, why don't I just have a plunge pool here? I mean, it would take up the entire floor of my house, my very small house, but it would be so nice, wouldn't it, in this weather, just to have a plunge pool. Anyway, obviously that is quite a sad memory at this moment. We stayed for 3 or 4 nights in Marrakesh and then 3 or 4 nights up in the Atlas Mountains. I think the place where we stayed in the mountains is 2 hours from the epicenter of the earthquake that happened there yesterday. I don't know. I've not seen mention of that village in any of the reports, but my guess is it will have been affected and they won't. The place where we actually stayed was slightly away from the village. It was a longish walk and or donkey ride up to what was an old monastery, I think, of some kind, something like that. It was quite an old place. I think that may have had better foundations and was certainly more solidly built. Around the village, I don't know, but I would suspect there would be people there who've lost their homes, if not their lives. And the images that you see on the news at the moment from Morocco, from Marrakesh itself, in the souks in the Medina, yeah, it's pretty tragic. And it's not a place where people have a lot of resources just to rebuild. I'm sure they have a lot of resilience and a lot of personal, internal resources to get on and do it. But a lot of that damage has been done in places that have, you know, hugely historic architecture and decoration and carving and tiles, and just there's so much beauty there. Most of it is not very on display because of the weather, and so the sort of the way that you do that is you create these buildings that create shade, and then all the beauty can be inside the buildings, and from outside they look like nothing. Yeah, I think there's a lot that will have just been lost, but you know, there will be rebuilding as well. But it's a hard thing to think this time last year I was there, and I believe, I don't know if there are tourists among those who've died, but there were certainly, you know, reports of tourists who were amongst those sort of spending the night outside and climbing through the rubble and that sort of thing. And you know, that could have been me, easily could have been me this time last year. So that was quite a sobering memory. When it first came up on my Facebook feed 2 or 3 days ago, before the earthquake had happened, the other memory that it triggered for me was this time last year. This is where we're getting into too much information. I apologise. Sorry, not sorry. I had my last period, and I remember it very precisely because it was the first day we got to Morocco, and I'm like, seriously? It'd been like 6 months, 8 months, something like that, and you know, you start to think, oh, come on, this must be the end. Oh no, one last blur, one last go while we are on holiday. Anyway, that was the last time. So it is now officially 12 months. I am officially menopausal, and that means I cannot remember anything. that has all sorts of implications for my life, but also my Flosstube. So this is what I think I have done in the last 2 weeks. I apologise if I've told you some of this stuff before. I'm sure there will be stuff that I will forget to tell you. That is just my normal at the moment. There's not much I can do about that. There hasn't been an awful lot of cross stitching, and what there has been has largely been secret model stitching that I can't really show you. I'm doing a model stitch for a charity collaboration that's coming out in the next couple of months, and I can't really say much more than that. So that's the main thing I have stitched on. The other thing that I have stitched on that I can show you, this is Heartstring Samplery Sting, and this is more or less Heartstring Samplery Sting. I also apologise for lighting. It's about 7:30 in the evening. I've got to have my light on. There's a lot of bad shadows and lighting as a result, but hopefully you can see that. So this was not the call for colours. I just picked colours from my, I'm in a Classic Colourworks thread club. I've been in it for well over a year. I can't remember exactly. So I've got quite a lot of Classic Colourworks stashed, and so it's perfect just to pick from this sort of project. So I picked 2 pinks, a red, a dark grey, and a yellow, and the sort of palish creamy colour. Now, what I will say, one of the things I knew I wanted to change was I wanted the bees to have a more yellowy yellow. And what I hadn't realised was that yellow was also charted for the bee hive. So I initially stitched that in the pale yellow. It was entirely wrong for the hive. And so, unusually for me, I did take out the beehive and restitch it in a darker yellow, but I kept the pale yellow, pale bright yellow for the bees. I used the colour from the hive to do the long stitching on the wings of the bees. The only other intentional change that I made, oh yeah, there were loads of unintentional changes. These little mini flowers, these sort of little cream dots here and there, are charted as just cross stitch, but I did French knots. I like the roundness of them and the slight dimension that it gives. So I did that. I changed some of the lettering, and I can't quite remember how or why. I just, 1 or 2 of the letters, I was like, oh, I think I want to stitch that slightly differently. So I did. So that changed the spacing. I don't know that any of the bees are stitched in exactly the place they are on the charts. 1 or 2 of them might be, quite a lot of them definitely aren't. I think it's fine. I think the layout is absolutely fine. I don't know that anyone is going to look at it and immediately go, well, you stitched that wrong, Roz. You know, unless you are literally Beth's Twist, in which case I apologise. Sorry, not sorry. It's my cross stitch. Or you've got too much time on your hands, because I think it looks lovely. So that is Sting Like a Bee. It is a finish for now. It's on the bottom half of my fabric. This is Up in the Attic 32 count from Fox and Rabbit. And at some point, Justine Stitching on Instagram is going to finish stitching Float Like a Butterfly, and we are going to exchange our charts, and so then we can each stitch the other part of that. There is absolutely no hurry, Justine, I promise you. I have got plenty of other things to be stitching, and I'm quite enjoying having a finish for now on that. It's just in the project bag, keeping all the threads, because I plan to use at least some of those colours in the top part as well. And yeah, I have some thoughts about how I might finish it, but I haven't decided yet. I've done my best to keep the chart in reasonable condition while I stitch that. So that is my finish for now. And like I say, I think that is the only cross stitching I'm actually going to show you. Sorry. I am going to show you some other crafts. So back in the day, before this really became a proper Flosstube channel, I used to do a thing which I called Craft Tube. And if you scroll back far enough, you will find those videos on this channel. I don't know that anyone else ever called their YouTube channel Flosstube, and so it didn't really take off. But it was, here's me doing all my different multi-craftual things. And I feel like today's episode of Flosstube is a bit more like one of those. So I apologise. If you're only interested in the cross-stitching, I am just going to talk to you about a little bit of haul, I suppose, which is rare for me, but I am going to talk to you a little bit about that, and then that will be all the cross-stitching, and you can swiftly move on to something more interesting. But I have other crafts that I am going to show. I've got some dressmaking and some art, and various things to talk about. I haven't made a list. That was a really bad idea. I definitely should have made a list. I quite often do have a list in front of me of remember to talk about these things. Okay, before I do haul, one piece of cross-stitch news is that the Forest Friends Stitchy Goodness magazine, organised through the Stitchers Collective, is coming out next Sunday, the 17th. I think that is right. I will put all the details below, but I think it is the 17th. That is 12 patterns all around that theme of Forest Friends from 12 different designers, including me. And you will be able to purchase that for some bargain price that I now cannot remember. I will have all the links below. There are some really beautiful patterns in it. I've seen the whole PDF in there. I think it's great, and I think it is a real bargain. It's on sale for a limited period, and then there's a sort of exclusion period, and then eventually designers can do what they want with their charts. They can give them away as freebies, or they can sell them individually, or whatever. But if you're interested in any of those charts, including mine, and you'd like to stitch them this autumn, lots of them have that sort of autumn flavour, you will want to buy the magazine next week. So that is that news. The haul that I've had, I purchased earlier this summer some super tiny high count fabric. I don't really know what I was thinking, but I did. I bought this, which is, can you see that? 56 count. 56 count linen. That is bonkers. So that is, if you stitch on 14 count Ada, you can get twice as many stitches on 28 count if you stitch it 1/1, or you could do it by stitching 1/2 on 56 count. Of course, you could get 4 times as many stitches if you do it 1/1 on 56 count. I'm not doing over 1. I'm not doing over 1, but I am going to try 1/2 on 56 count. And I was like, well, what do I use to stitch that with? I tried a little bit with like one strand of floss, and it was just too chunky. So I sort of watched quite a lot of Katie Strachan and other people, and they're all like, oh, you've got to stitch with Au Ver Soie. So anyway, I do have some Au Ver Soie 103, which I bought recently, but I now also have some Au Ver Soie Soie Fine. Soie Fine. I'm going to take it off the back, not least because that's the wrong box. I bought this. I couldn't find it on sale anywhere in the UK. Maybe it is, and if you know where it is on sale in the UK, I would love a link to that. I found somewhere on Etsy selling it from shipping from France, but I also found it at Werkstatt für historische Stickmuster, which is in Germany, I assume. I think that's Germany, yeah. And they were selling it in these lovely little boxes. So I bought 2 boxes of 6 spools. I bought the framboise, which means raspberry, and the vert, green. And so I got 12 spools, and it was not hugely expensive. I can't remember how much now, but I remember thinking, oh, actually, that's not an unreasonable price to pay for a spool of thread. You get, I think, let me put the lid back on so I can look at the bottom. 2-ply spun silk with a moderate luster, smooth and soft. It is available in more than 80 colours in 100 metres. Yeah, so 100 metre spools, ideal for miniature embroidery. So, I haven't used it yet. slightly intimidated by it, but that is what I'm going to try on the 56 count. I've got size 10 small beading needles, which again is, I think, what Katie Strachan uses. I've got the Swassofine and I've got the 56 count. Just need the nerves of steel and the eyes of a child. Yeah, so we'll see how that goes. Anyway, but one of the things I did love with the order came these postcards. Aren't they pretty? I really like this. I love how monochrome doesn't have to mean black and white. I think that's really beautiful monochrome. This one with these little Christmassy charts on. I don't know whether these are things that are all available in their shop, but brilliantly, they all have a little chart on the back. I'm not going to show you the little charts on the back, but they do all have a little chart on the back. And there were 4 of them. I thought it was really nice. Really nice thing to include in the order. The charts on the back are obviously not the entire picture. That would be a very tiny chart. You get one motif. So on this one, just trying to look and work out where the thing on the back corresponds to on the front. I don't think it does. I think it must be somewhere else in that same sample. It is quite similar, but it's not there. Let's see if there's one on here that corresponds. That is quite weird. They've got the same chart on the back. That's really interesting. I hadn't noticed that before. Anyway, this one definitely is from the front because you get this little bird. So that's quite cute, with a little bit of the sort of flower background as well. So that's really nice. And on this one, you get, trying to work out which way around it is. You get this person, again, with a little bit of the outline floral motif. So I just thought that was really nice. You know, often shops have a little thing that they slip in with orders, but I thought that was a particularly lovely one to get. And it's obviously got all their details as well. So it's like a business card, but prettier and much more useful than a business card. Right, I think that really is all the cross stitch I have to talk about. Sorry, it is what it is. What I'm going to be stitching for the rest of September, I think, is a lot of secret stitching. I think I said this last time as well. I need to finish that model this week, really. I want to start stitching, well, I want to get finished stitching my Smalls Exchange for Stitch in London and 2 other things for gifts. The other thing I have been working on, which again I can't show you, but I'm so excited about, I've been making table gifts for Stitch in London. Almost all of the table gift has come from stuff that already exists in my craft room. You know, years ago I had some friends visit with their children who are now all actual adults, so quite a long time ago, and I remember, you know, and I think they were all primary school aged at that point. Ross, can we do some craft? Have you got anything we can make? And I'm like, oh, I mean, probably. I had not planned anything. But, you know, within about 5 minutes, everybody's settled down with a craft activity that I've come up with, that I've got all the materials for. And my friend said to me, Ross, coming to your house is a bit like coming to John Lewis. And I'm like, yeah, no. It's like coming to John Lewis when John Lewis was good and actually sold proper craft materials. I have a lot of stuff around, and I have really enjoyed finding things to use up for these table gifts, which I think are looking fabulous. There are 1 or 2 things that I have actually bought, one of which I'm still waiting for, but like the whole thing will have cost maybe £1.50, something like that per gift. Really not very, I think it is slightly more than £1, but not much more. But they just look, I think they look so fabulous. And anyway, I've definitely made one for me, so I will certainly show you that after the surprise has been given. Right, so what have I been doing if I've not been doing a lot of stitching? Well, I have been doing secret stitching, and I have been doing a bit on the Gecko Rouge, but not enough that it's worth getting out and showing you. I have been doing dressmaking. I just noticed a little thread that I want to try and pull out. I haven't done any dressmaking for a while. During lockdown, the first craft that I turned to was dressmaking. I found it really soothing to have. So my sewing space is out in my garden. I have a shepherd's hut. It's very lovely. I'm very lucky it doesn't have internet, and I was able to just go out there and not have the constant scroll of awful news. And dressmaking at home was a good thing to do at that point, because there were sort of concrete projects that you could finish often in the same day, but certainly within a day or two. I had a lot of fabric stashed. I made a lot of garments before I had to do any shopping at all. I think the first thing I had to buy was some more interfacing, and then eventually I got to the point where I was like, okay, I've used up all the sort of spring summer fabric I had got at that point, and it was still only about May, and I'm like, I don't want to start sewing all my winter garments up. So that was the point at which I started buying more fabric. And I kept buying more fabric, but I slightly ran out of the dressmaking bug, and so I hadn't really made anything since January 2022, I think. So it was a while ago. Anyway, so the fabric had been building up, and I decided it was time to get out there and make some things. So I made 3 garments so far, and I'm enjoying it. Because I started making garments, and because I was like, oh, it's September, it's time to, you know, get rid of some of the really summery things. And I did this huge wardrobe sort out. And then obviously the weather decided, no, it's still summer. Anyway, but it was quite good. So I sorted through all my summer things and have got rid of the things that I just haven't worn for a couple of summers, the things that I've worn a lot and are quite manky, the things that I think actually would be much better going to someone else in the charity shop, and the things that can go for recycling. So I did this huge sort out of all my summer things, and then there was lots of space, so I got out the stuff that was in storage for winter and sorted through that as well before putting it in. So then I've got a wardrobe. I put the rest of the summer stuff, you know, that's perfectly fine, away, apart from 1 or 2 things, because I'm like, I've got to have something to wear just at the moment. But what it meant was I was able to see what I actually have in my wardrobe, where the gaps are, the space, there's actual literal space in the wardrobe itself to put new garments. So one of the things that I had ended up getting rid of was all the sort of lounging around at home sweatshirts. So I made this. If I remember, and if I can be bothered, I might put some footage of me trying these things on to show you how they fit, but I no guarantees because it's really hot and I don't know if I can face trying things on. So anyway, this is a Deer and Doe Neige sweatshirt. I've made a couple of these before and I really like it as a pattern. The thing that I really like about it, and you can see here hopefully because I put these bits of contrast, and it's not really piping but it's sort of faux piping on the sleeve. The sleeve is actually cut in 3 sections. So this is where the shoulder line is, so then you get 1 wedge section there, 1 wedge section in the middle, and 1 at the bottom, and so it gives you this really nice shape to the sleeve, but it's also really effective in terms of fabric use. So I reckon I need 1.5 meters of 150 wide stretch fabric to make a sweatshirt or a top or something like that. With this pattern, I can get away with less. And if I decide that I want to do some kind of contrast on the sleeve, so for example, could just do that middle section in a contrast, I can, even if I've only got 1 meter of fabric, I'm like, okay, I think I can make it work somehow. So I really like it for that. With this pattern, as you can see, what I've done on that contrast panel is just, well, in fact, these 2, I've put the fabric going the other way. And I also did that. I was trying to work out what to do at the bottom, and should I do some rib? Oh, sorry, I haven't ironed it. And again, I just decided I was going to put in a band of the fabric going the other way. So it does have some stretch going that way, but not nearly as much as it does coming this way. You can do a simple round neck, or you can do a sort of turtlenecky, cowl necky kind of thing. I decided to do it in this contrasting spotty yellow fabric, which sits really nicely. It just is really comfortable to wear. The main fabric is fleece lined sweatshirting, so that's all fleecy and soft. This contrast fabric is just ordinary t-shirting, nice quality t-shirting, but it's not thick. And then I had some piping that I use, ribbing. That is the other thing, menopausal, can't do words. Ribbing that I put on the sleeves. It's really comfortable. When I bought this fabric, I buy most of my fabric online these days because there isn't a fabric shop all that locally. And it came and I wasn't sure that I loved it. I wasn't sure that I loved it. And I'm still not sure that I love it. Sometimes I look at it and I think, oh, actually, that's really nice. And other times I look at it and think, I'm not sure. Anyway, so I just thought, rather than try and make something smart-ish out of sweatshirting, I'm just going to make that my lounging around at home sweatshirt. And then if I decide I don't like it, it doesn't really matter. I can wear it for gardening. But I think I do quite like it. And I don't know whether I would have liked it more if I'd had like some of this bluish greeny fabric to use as the contrast. That might have been better. Anyway, I've done it now. I'm not redoing it. It's done. So I did that. Then I made this. This is just a not fitted. It's a t-shirt with a slightly swing style at the bottom. I have a really nice pattern by Wardrobe by Me that gives you separate pattern pieces, so not just lines drawn on the same piece of paper, but actual separate pieces for different necklines. So it's very clever. You get the body piece, and then you get this sort of down to about here, different bits that you can stick on. And I guess you could trace them. Excuse me. But if you're me, what you do is you just stick on the relevant bit with Scotch tape and then take it off and use a different one. So this is the scoop neck variation. I think there's another scoop neck, and I can't remember if it's a smaller one or a deeper one. There's a V-neck, there's a boat neck, there's a crew neck. I think that's it. There are also various different sleeve options, cap sleeve. I think there's a sleeveless option, cap sleeves, mid-length, ballerina sleeves, long sleeves. I can't remember if there's any other body options, but the idea is it's your basic pattern, like your basic block, if you were somebody that worked that way, with all the options built in to make it into whatever t-shirt you need it to be. And I really like it, and it fits nicely, and I know which pieces I need to use. So this is actually the same contrast that I used for that one, but just the back of it, so you don't see the splashy dots. And I think that works quite nicely as a binding for the scoop neck. This sort of looks a bit dodgy here, but when it's on, it sits perfectly fine. So that's nice. That's a long sleeve wintry t-shirt made out of fabric that I don't know where I bought it or when or anything. Anyway, third thing, I mean, these are all in the last few weeks. And the first week of that I was away on a conference, so this is, me. I've been working quite hard in the sewing room and enjoying it. So this is a dress. Yeah, that's hopeless. I thought this might be hopeless, and it is hopeless. This is also not on the thing. Right, so it's got a round neck with a slit that I've put rip-rack edging. It's got sort of mid-length sleeves that have got... I was going to use this as a binding, but actually I really liked how it looked, so I just left it as a sort of cuff hem. It's got nice set-in pockets, and then I have done, let's see if we can hold this up so you can see it, a scalloped hem. Now, I can tell you some stuff about this. This is the Everyday Chic dress by a company called So Different. I bought it in York when I was in York for General Synod. General Synod is so draining and exhausting and hard. And in York, it goes on forever. And I was just like, I have to take an afternoon off. I just can't. And so I bought various things. I bought this actually in a charity shop in York. It was huge. It was, you know, like 5 sizes too big or something. And the main thing with it, I can't really show you. Here we are. So you see this is the neckband. When I bought it, the neckband came right down below my boobs. It was really, really indecent. But I was like, well, it's big. And what you see when you see people do transformation challenges and stuff is start with something big and end up with something smaller. And I never get that chance to that if you're my size. But this, you know, I'm size 22 and this is size 30. I'm like, I must be able to do that. I must be able to do that. And actually, I ended up doing the simplest transformation of all. All I did was put in some elastic along the neckband here and here, sort of at the sleeve head. And that just brought the neckline up, gives me an extra gathered fluttery sleeve. And the rest of it, it's big, but there's a tie at the back and there's a little bit of elastic around the underbust waistband, so it doesn't look ridiculous. And it's just lovely and soft and light and flowy for summer. Anyway, that was a tangent. I also went to the proper sewing shop in York. That's what I was trying to get to. And I bought this pattern and I bought this fabric for it. I'm still not quite sure what the fabric is. You can see it's printed. It sort of feels, what is it? It's cotton canvasy, not really. A little bit like a lightweight denim, but not really. It's not a super lightweight fabric. It's definitely something you'd make like a skirt or trousers from. You wouldn't make anything flowy from it. I don't really know what it is. Anyway, I like it. And so I wasn't in any great urgency to sew it because I thought, actually, I think it'll make a really nice sort of autumn spring dress rather than a sort of flowing summery one. YouTube keeps wanting to show me little shorts of people sewing different necklines. I'm not really sure why. And so I was slightly inspired by that to put the rick-rack around the edge of it. I mean, this is going to end up being my thumbnail shot, isn't it? Yeah. Fill your boots, YouTube. Anyway, so that is just rick-rack sewn on the inside of the neckband, but I quite like how that looks. I really like it. It fits really nicely and comfortably. There are options to put in some shearing elastic to gather it under the bust and also at the back above the waist if you want something more fitted. I like how it hangs without that. The only thing that I did make a change to, the pockets were about 4 inches too long. Like my arms just aren't that long and my hands just aren't that long. So the pockets are still there because I'm lazy. But I sewed an extra seam. So you can see that's where the pattern piece came to. And this is where my hand comfortably sits in the pocket. So I just sewed an extra seam across there. And then the other change I made was this scalloped hem. This may have been a bad idea, but I like it. It needs a bit more pressing and sorting, but also you can see, yeah, I didn't do a brilliant job of thinking about how closely those scallops should go, and they should have been much further apart to give room for the fabric to turn properly. So what I think I want to do is take some more of the rick-rack. I haven't got enough, so I need to try and find some. So I went to Hobbycraft and they didn't have the right colour. I need to see if I can order some and stitch that. Let me see if I can show you. Sort of along that line of the scallops. I think that won't look too silly because the rick-rack appears obviously on the neckline where I showed you already, and you know, the sort of scallopy shape mimics that, and that will hopefully just cover the worst of the holes between the scallops. And I might put something on the back to reinforce and then use the rick-rack to decorate. So that is not quite finished. I need to sort out the rick-rack and do that, but that is the only thing left to do on it. It fits really nicely. I definitely want to make more of those. It was pretty easy to stow. So that is what I have been doing. I've got a wrap jersey top in a navy fabric that's in the same line as the yellowy one with the dots. This is navy and it's got white and bright pink sort of splatter, but little fine splatter. It's a bit sort of galaxy-ish / paintbrush splatter-ish. And I'm going to make, it's not a wrap top, it's a faux wrap top. It's a V-neck top that has a sort of faux wrap that comes around. I've made the pattern before. I've got it cut out. I just need to sew that. And yeah, I've got plans for 1 or 2 more things. So it's been really interesting actually doing the wardrobe first and then looking at it. So what do I need for winter? Mostly I need some more tights. I need to I think I threw out a lot of tights at the end of last winter, and I need to buy some new tights. I don't need loads of t-shirts. Turns out I have quite a lot of t-shirts and I wear them quite a lot. I would like 1 or 2 shirts with some kind of collar. And I would like 1 or 2 skirts and 1 or 2 more dresses. That is very much within the capacity of my existing fabric stash by some way. So anyway, it'll be nice to do those for the autumn winter, and hopefully while my dressmaking kick continues, I will get that done. Right, so I've been doing that a lot. Now, this is settle in for the story. Settle in for the story of the Longdon Village Show. The world of village shows is a world that I've always really wanted to be part of, to be honest. The nearest I've got previously is the county show. So I live, a few hundred yards from our county showground. I have entered in the county show handicraft section several times over the years. I've talked about some of that on previous craft tubes. You can have a look, scroll back if you're interested to find out what sort of things I've done and how they went. But I've never been able to enter in an actual village show because I've never really lived in a village. I live on a farm, but it's not part of a village. Our nearest place is the town, and there isn't a village show in the town, sadly. But the art group that I go to, and I've been going to for many years, we now meet in a WI hall in a village. And 2 or 3 times over the last year, the show secretary of the village show has popped in while we've been meeting to say, please could you enter, it'd be great if we could enter for the village show. And we're all like, oh, we don't live in the village, we can't enter. And he's like, no, it definitely says if you're part of a group that meets in the village, you're entitled to enter the show. And we're like, oh, okay, great. Well, let's do that then. And so then he was like, okay, so you help me decide what category we need to put in the section so that you'll all enter. And so we talked about various things, and we suggested that he have something that's quite open. So we ended up with a category that was any media inspired by rainbow. And there was a size criteria. It had to be smaller than 30 by 30. But other than that, it could be any kind of thing, any media inspired by rainbow. We thought, well, that will give everyone lots of scope to do different things. And we were like, oh, that's fine, we'll enter. And we haven't yet started meeting again for the autumn. So at the end of last term, we were all trying to work out how were we going to get our things submitted, because you don't all live in the village and you're supposed to come on the day and all this sort of thing. And our art teacher had said, that's fine. You just make sure you get it all to me and I'll make sure then it all gets entered. Anyway, we met up for tea a few weeks ago, and we were all supposed to take our things, and no, that's not true. 2 people had remembered to take their things but then forgot to give them to Helen. And most of us did not take our things. I did not take my things. And I felt quite bad because I'd meant to do something else for one of the other categories as well, and I hadn't done that. So I thought it was fine. I've got a copy of the show entry form. I can just fill it in myself and take it around a few days before and leave it with him. And he said that would be fine. And then, I can go in the afternoon to the show, but I just couldn't get there at the time when you're supposed to set up your exhibits, you see. So I did that, and I did a painting, and then I also took something that we'd made in art class over the last year that I thought would do for the rainbow category, took 20p per entry, so I filled in my form and I took my 20p's and submitted. Anyway, messaged my art teacher yesterday to say, I'm going to the show, I've submitted 2 entries, are you going to be there? Let's meet up. And I got a text message saying, yeah, no, I'll be there. By the way, you've submitted 3 entries. I'm like, oh, Okay, the plot thickens, because she'd felt really bad that none of us had got our stuff together. And I think one or two people from her other groups had got their stuff together, but most of us had not. And, you know, she felt really bad. So she had submitted entries as if they were from the rest of us. She'd been able to pick up an entry from someone else and one or two other things. And then she'd just submitted stuff sort of in our style. Anyway. So we went to and anyway, well, let me show you. So this is the first thing. This was in my entry in the rainbow category. You've seen this before, I think. This was the thing with the coffee stirrers and the pain and all the rest of it. Anyway, this is what the judge said. Love the graphical image, clever use of wooden stirrers. Get you. That was Helen's idea, the wooden stirrers. We did that in class. And this was it's all stuck together now, the card that was next to it. First prize. It's exciting, isn't it? I mean, it's slightly deceptive. There are no prizes. There are cash prizes if you're in one of the child categories, and some of the categories have trophies. But for me, there was no actual prize. This is the prize. But anyway, first place, quite pleased with that. There were quite a lot of entries. Lots and lots of different media. It was really nice to see. Somebody had done like a silk painted scarf, and somebody had done a beautiful necklace with stones in rainbow order, and somebody had done a screen print and all sorts of things. Anyway, so this was mine. There was another piece just further along the table, which was a collage. I like a collage. Collage of colours, a sort of colour wash. It was a little bit pastel, perhaps for my taste. Anyway, fortunately, they didn't have all the exhibitors, all the entrants' names on them, only on the winning ones, because apparently that was also mine. It didn't win. That's fine. That's fine. But then we get to the other category that I'd entered, and this category was a painting, the title of which was Scene, S-C-E-N-E, any kind of scene, and you could do it in any media or mixed media. So this was my entry. It's watercolour with pen, permanent marker pen. It's based on a painting I did 2 or 3 years ago in Somerset. And the main difference between this one and that one is I gave this one more autumnal colours in the fields, and I put the poppies in the field at the front. But it's very similar to the one I did before. That one was much longer and thinner, to be fair, as well. This one was much more standard size. Because again, there was a size requirement on this. One of the ladies from the other art group, so we were all going around together, she had entered a painting for that category, which I really liked. It was a very graphic, sort of Middle Eastern kind of city with minarets and buildings and so on, and really nice use of tonal perspective in it. Anyway, but hers had been disqualified because apparently it was the wrong size. She says, it's not the wrong size. And he said, it's supposed to be 30 by 30. She's like, no, it's in the category that says 40 by 30. And it was the same as mine. Hers was this way around, but it was the same size as mine. Anyway, it was very funny. It was, all that sort of intrigue of a village show that you want. I mean, if this had been in Ambridge, if you don't know what I mean by Ambridge, The Archers is the longest running soap opera in the UK. It's been on radio for well over 70 years. It is an everyday story of rural folk, and the fruit and veg show every year. All kinds of shenanigans go on there. And I mean, this would have been absolutely worthy of that. So anyway, this is on the wall with all the other paintings. And, the painting that won was a really, really good painting. I think it was an oil. It might have been acrylic or sort of modern acrylic oil or whatever, of a city scene with construction and in the rain and people and buildings, and not my sort of style at all, but it was really good. You could tell it was painted by someone who knows how to paint, and it was really good. And then there were maybe 6 or 7 entries, and they were all lovely. 1 or 2 were quite simple, but there were others that I thought, oh yeah, no, I I would, you know, have given that one a prize or that one a prize. But this one, turns out, also had a card next to it. Let me just show you, however, what this card said. Second prize, awarded to Helen Jobling. That's my art teacher. So, I mean, it's even signed here. That's me. That's my painting. And the card ended up in her name. Anyway, we didn't make a fuss. Because we didn't really want to have to explain how there had ended up being such a mix-up with whose entries were whose and all the different ones that she'd entered. But I still don't quite know how that ended up saying that that was from her, because I definitely put that on my entry form. So anyway, I'm like, well, you can't have the card. She said, it's got my name on it. I don't care. That's my painting. I got second place. Anyway, it was very funny as I was coming out of as we were leaving, in the end, you know, you pick up your things, and I picked up mine and I was leaving. And the lady, who I think is like maybe the chair of the WI, and we meet in the WI hall, and, you know, she's smiling at me and she saw the things. And she's like, oh, did you do both of those? And I was like, yes, I did. And then I suddenly was like, I really hope she wasn't paying attention to who won, because, yeah, they had different names on them. And we were all sort of going, and she was, and Ella was like, and this one's by Rianne, and this one's by Angela, and this one's by, and I'm like, how many of these did you do? People had entered their own things as well. Quite a lot of people, I think, from the other group. I think the person who won second in the rainbow category, I can't remember whether she was second or third, actually, was also somebody from one of Helen's other classes. She'd done a beautiful needle felted piece. Yeah. So it was very funny. And it was the kind of show where quite a lot of the categories, if you entered, you stood 100% chance of winning a prize. There was only one entry in under 8's chocolate chip cookies. Same girl also won under 8's decorated gingerbread man. And so funnily enough, she also won best junior baker. If you'd grown any size pumpkin, you could have at least come second in giant pumpkin. If you had, what else? What other categories were there that were very low number of entries? Don't know. There were some categories that had loads. So there were a couple of categories that were clearly everyone in the nursery school or the primary school had entered. There were some categories that were quite niche. But it was fun. It was really fun. There was a nice mix. So, you know, there was sort of heaviest onion and best onion, different categories. Heaviest onion, £1.15 3/4, not £2, £1.15 3/4. It looked pretty heavy to me, sort of onion you'd never want to eat. I wished I'd entered some lemon curd, because there wasn't a lot in that category, and I do like lemon curd. What else was there? Photography, best animal or pet, best monochrome picture of the village. Pleasingly, somebody had entered a monochrome photo of last year's village show. I thought that was very meta. They didn't win. Well, actually, I think they might have won, but with it, because you could enter more than one thing in the same category, but you couldn't win more than one prize. So even if you entered the best three, you could still only win one prize, but you could enter more than one. So yes, and then there was sort of floral art. There was pot plants. I thought that was a bit weird. I mean, I don't know, your pot plant just sort of sits there all year. I don't really know what you do to win your prize. You sort of dust it off and cut off the manky bits and bring it in. I don't know. Succulents. I mean, literally, that's, have you got a cactus sitting in your bathroom? Bring it in. Painted stones. I don't know why they don't let adults do painted stones. I really wanted to do that. And all that sort of stuff. So that was all happening in the village hall. And then in the WI hall, which is where we meet. So this is a village, it's extraordinary. It's not a big village. WI hall, village hall, social club. I'm trying to think. There's at least one pub, but I think there might be another one as well. You know, it is well off for social venues. Anyway, in the WI hall, they were doing refreshments, which we thought meant a cup of tea and a piece of cake, maybe. For £3, you got a drink and then help yourself to a buffet, which included sandwiches and quiche and crisps and salad and cakes and scones. £3. It's amazing. Anyway, we'd all had lunch by the time we turned up. So, I mean, I had a cup of tea, half a scone and a piece of lemon drizzle cake. It was very nice. £3. I thought I was, you know, pretty good value, to be honest. But literally, you could have gone and had your whole lunch. They can't have been making money on that. I don't know. But it was really lovely. So it's nice. And so we went round the thing. We had the cup of tea. I'd taken Charlie with me. We took him for a little walk because we wanted to wait for the prize giving and the raffle draw. And then you could collect your stuff before you left. So that was the drama and intrigue and scandal of the Longdon Village Show. I really enjoyed it, and I definitely plan to enter more next year. I might try and do some baking for next year as well, or even some flower arranging. I don't know. I've always wanted to do flower arranging. I don't think I'm very good at it, but also not everyone who entered was very good at it anyway. So we'll see. Could do. That'll be fun. Right, so I think that is all I've got to show you. I will try and be back. Now, let me just work out. What is it? The 10th today. I will try and be back in 2 weeks. I will have at least one of my secret things that I can show you by then. Hopefully I will have done some other stitching that isn't secret that I can show you. And even if not, I'm sure I will find some things to talk about. I haven't really done Thinky Thoughts for a little while. I must have some, but I don't know. Menopausal now. Might not have any thoughts at all ever again. Who can say? Right, I think I'm going to go. And I think, by the way, I am recording this on Sunday, so it will end up being uploaded on Monday. And I think that is likely to be the habit, the new pattern going forward. That, well, sometimes I can upload on... Sometimes I can film on Saturday and upload on Sunday. It needs to upload overnight. My internet's not good enough to just do it like that. But it may well be that more often from now on, I'm recording on the Sunday, and therefore it goes live on Monday. Anyway, if you're subscribed, you will know. I'm still just tantalizingly close to 400 subscribers. I really, really love, this is my goal. I say goal, I'm not going to actually do anything to achieve it. This is my dream and hope and aspiration. I'd love to get to 500 subscribers by the end of the year. Don't you think that would be nice? 500 subscribers by the end of the year. It's pretty modest. So if you're not subscribed, do subscribe. You don't have to watch the videos. You certainly don't have to watch the end. But it just makes me feel better. And do tell other people if you think they might like my videos too. You could share, I always post on Instagram, so you could share that post in an Instagram story pretty easily. Or if you have a floss tube, you could mention it there. Or if you're talking about floss tubes that you watch, you could say, why don't you have a go and check out Ros Clark Craft. There you go. I said it. On that point, I will stop. Thank you so much for watching.